Okay, so you've got these super dense lecture notes on network security, maybe an exam coming up, and it's all a little much. Don't worry, you're in the right spot. We're going to walk through this stuff together and break it all down into simple, clear ideas that'll actually stick.
So, to really get a handle on the challenge of network analysis, I want you to picture something. Imagine you are in a completely sold-out stadium. Every single person is talking, and your job is to find one single secret being whispered somewhere in that absolute chaos. That's pretty much what network analysis feels like. You're trying to find one tiny, crucial piece of information in a sea of noise. So, where do you even begin?
Well, and this is the most important idea, the key takeaway from your entire lecture, really. The secret isn't about trying to see everything. It's about knowing what you can safely ignore. The real skill here is learning how to filter out 99.9% of all that noise so you can focus on the one conversation that actually matters. So here's our game plan for this. First, we'll talk about that ocean of data so you can really appreciate the scale of the problem. Then, we'll open up our toolkit and look at the different kinds of data filters. We'll learn how to sort by the envelope and how to read the postcards. And finally, we'll put it all together to see the whole conversation, and I'll wrap it up with the key stuff you'll need for your exam. Right, so the first thing you absolutely have to grasp is that network data isn't a stream, it's a tidal wave. I mean, we are talking about terabytes and terabytes of information being captured in just a few minutes. If you try to analyze all of that raw data, it's like trying to drink from a fire hose. It's impossible. The very first step, always, is to shrink that ocean of data down to a manageable puddle. So how do we actually do that? How do we tame this data tsunami? Well, we use our toolkit. And in the real world, the main tool for this job is an application called Wireshark. It's basically packed with these powerful data filters, which are the essential ways you carve out the little bits of information you need from that giant mountain of noise. And your notes lay out 4 really powerful filtering techniques we can use in a tool like Wireshark. You can filter by port, by metadata, by content, and by session. We're going to go through each one. But let's start with the first 2, which are all about judging a data packet by its cover. I want you to imagine that all of this network data is just a gigantic mountain of mail delivered to your door. Our first 2 filters, ports and metadata, they're like sorting that entire mountain without opening a single letter. We're just looking at the information on the outside of the envelope to figure out where it came from and where it's supposed to go. So let's talk about ports first. Think of a server as this giant office building with thousands and thousands of doors. Now, to avoid complete chaos, specific services always use the same door. So for example, regular web traffic always knocks on port 80. Secure web traffic, the stuff with the little lock icon, always uses port 443. These are called well-known ports. So if you just filter for port 80, you can instantly see all the web browsing traffic and ignore everything else. It's super efficient. Next up is metadata. Sticking with our analogy, this is all the information written on the outside of that envelope. It's not the letter inside, it's the data about the letter. You know, the sender's address, the recipient's address, how much the package weighs, that kind of thing. It gives you a ton of context without you ever having to read a single word of the actual message. And your notes give some fantastic examples here. You can filter by IP addresses to see exactly who is talking to whom. Or you could filter by the size of the data packets. Are people sending tiny little text messages or huge video files? You can even filter by the protocol being used, which is kind of like the language the computers are speaking, like HTTP for web browsing. And of course, you've got timestamps, how long the communication lasted, how often they talk, all valuable clues. Okay, so we've sorted our giant pile of mail by looking at the envelopes. Now it's time to actually start reading some of it. This next level of filtering is like reading postcards. You can see the message, but only because it wasn't sealed in an envelope, or in our world, because it wasn't encrypted. The course material actually uses this specific German term, and it's probably one you should know. Filtering auf Zeichenketten. It literally just means filtering on character strings. It's a fancy way of saying you're telling your analysis tool, hey, search through all this data and find me this specific word, or this phrase, or this string of characters. So what can you actually find this way? Well, you could search for a user agent string to see what web browser somebody was using. Or you could search for a website name to see if anyone's visiting it. You might even find the actual content of chat messages or emails. But, and you need to star this, highlight this, circle this for your exam, there is a huge, crucial catch. This only works if the traffic is unencrypted. If the data is encrypted, all you're going to see is complete and utter gibberish. It's useless. The last filtering method your professor talks about is a bit of a conceptual leap. Up until now, we've been looking at tiny, individual packets of data. Now we're going to zoom out and look at the entire conversation. This is called session analysis, and this is where you start to see the big picture. Think about it like this. A single data packet is like hearing one word from a long conversation. If you just hear the word therefore, it's pretty meaningless, right? Session analysis is where we piece all those individual words, all those packets, together so we can follow the entire back and forth. It's how you get the real context, the actual story of what happened between two computers. All right, let's pull all this together. If you're studying for an exam, these next few points are the absolute must-know core concepts. This is what it all boils down to. First, let's connect this theory back to the real world. Remember that tool we mentioned earlier, Wireshark? That is the industry standard application where you will actually use all of these filtering techniques. So think of Wireshark as your digital magnifying glass. It's the place where these abstract ideas become real, concrete actions.
And here it is, your final cheat sheet. The core problem, raw network traffic, is an absolute data tsunami. The solution, you have to use filters. Metadata and port filters, they give you that high-level overview, the view from 30,000 feet. String filters, they let you peek inside the data, but, and I'll say it again, only if it's unencrypted. And finally, session analysis is the key to understanding the full story, not just a few random words.
So we'll end with this thought. You now have the techniques you need to cut through all the noise in that sold-out stadium and zero in on just one conversation. The only question left is, what are you listening for? What are the secrets, whether it's a security threat, a system bug, or a network bottleneck, that you're actually trying to find? Because in the end, that's the whole point.